perspective, Kevin is an amazing person to ask. And then we also have Za, who is also a manager of recruitment and admissions. From the Business Career Centre, we have Ivan Yuan, who's the Associate Director of MBA Careers. We have Marja Harmer, who's the manager of PMBA Careers. And we also have Donna Wood, who is the Student Experience Manager for the PMBA program. So we have a large team here to support you in the Q&A web chat. So feel free to ask questions throughout the course of the evening, and then start queuing up those questions that you might have for Marja or our amazing alumni panel. So let's get started with a presentation about our professional MBA program. So our professional MBA program, like I alluded to, is our part-time MBA program, and it's designed specifically to work for those people that are pursuing a career, so working at the same time as pursuing their MBA. The program is 24 months long, and it is on weekends only. And I'll go a little bit more into the structure about how it actually works out in a little moment. But the idea behind a professional MBA or a part-time MBA is it allows students to grow their career in a more organic fashion. So it's an opportunity for you to use your own workplace as a living laboratory to apply the concepts that you use in an MBA and bring real value added to your company as you go through the MBA program. So accordingly, a lot of students, actually 90% of them, will get at least one career promotion during the 24 months of the program. So that's something that is really unique about an part-time MBA program, is that it's an opportunity for you to pursue organic career growth, pursue those wins during your studies that can basically prove yourself organically ready for a promotion as you're completing the program. So I know you have a lot of choices in terms of local MBA offerings. For those of you that are joining us locally or even internationally, there's many MBA programs out there. But I think in terms of those of you that are considering UBC as a local program, you know, among the local choices, UBC obviously has a tremendous local reputation, but I think where we really stand out is our global reputation in addition to the local reputation. So globally, we are ranked top 45 global elite by the QS Business School rankings. We're ranked #1 in Canada for business economics, and we have 40,000 Sauder alumni in 80 countries around the world. So that's just the close-knit Sauder alumni network. Of course, UBC has a broader alumni network of 300,000 alumni in 140 countries around the world. So both the Sauder School and the UBC brand has tremendous global recognition. So if those of you that are thinking, maybe I'm just locally oriented in Vancouver, I don't really necessarily need to think abroad, well, you never know where your career is going to take you. The world, as we can now see, is changing immensely rapidly, so you never know. It's always good to keep your options broader, and so the UBC option gives you both a local reputation as well as global recognition. So this is how the program works. You usually take 2 courses on Saturday, Sunday on an 8-week cycle. So you can see you'll take 1 course on the Saturday, and then you'll take another course on the Sunday. You'll get a break. And so it's kind of 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off. 2 weeks breaks in the 6th and 7th week, and then on the 8th week, you'll get your exams, which are proctored online. So they're not open book, they are proctored online, but this type of schedule works quite well. It accommodates a lot of different working scenarios. For example, people that have to travel a lot for work, having exams proctored online is quite helpful. So you can see, you can already see that with this type of schedule, you're not in class every single weekend. It works out to be approximately once or twice a month, you'll have a weekend of classes. So that works, our grads have found that quite helpful because, they're not trying to run to a course right after work, or their classes are not every week. So they really have time to digest the material and really apply that material into their workplace and see if it works. And then come the weekend classes, you have a time to really immerse yourself in the content, learn among your peers, and then really digest that information to again apply that or find new opportunities for growth and value added in your companies when you're back at work on Monday morning. So that's kind of how the schedule works in the PMBA program. Now, like I alluded to before, because of this kind of global reach that we have as UBC, there's a number of global experiences that you can get involved with in the PMBA program. So one of these experiences comes from our network partnership with Yale University called the Global Network of Advanced Management. And that contains not only Yale, but 30 leading business schools all around the world, including Yale, Berkeley, HEC Paris, Oxford. And that offers our students in certain parts of the program to do something called a Global Network Week at one of these 30 institutions. So it could be, physically at that institution, or if you didn't have that flexibility with your schedule, you can also do these courses as small network online courses as well. Now, all of these courses will count back as elective credits towards your MBA. So it's a really unique opportunity to study at a world-class institution like Oxford or Berkeley, and then have those credits transfer back towards your PMBA program. So these are a sampling of some of the network courses that we had last year. So you can see they often have like a regional or institutional bent to the themes that you would learn in GNOM. So you can see Berkeley did a GNOM Network Week on Bay Area innovation and entrepreneurship. Yale did one on the behavioral science of management, and UBC did one on the sustainable development goals. So you can see that you could choose an institution where like you might want to learn from that institution's regional kind of area of expertise and benefit from a kind of enlarged kind of augmented learning experience in that way. So another opportunity for international exchange is from our study abroad program. So this is the program that those of you that did study abroad in your undergrad will be a bit more familiar with. This is where you would actually go abroad to the institution and take some courses. Now, our study abroad program could be as long as a few months, like a semester, or as short as just a couple of weeks. So there's some flexibility in terms of the length of the study abroad program, because we know, particularly for those of you that are doing the program part-time, there's work considerations. So you might not just be able to go abroad for a longer period of time. Now, we do have 34 exchange partners all around the world. Every continent is covered except for Antarctica. So if you do want to see the penguins in Antarctica, it won't be through our study abroad program, but anywhere else you want to go, likely we do have a partner there. So these are just a couple of our European partners. We have the Copenhagen Business School, and ESSEC University in Paris is always a very popular choice. And as in addition to these really world-class European institutions, we also have schools in Asia, in Australia, in Europe, in the United States, as well as in Africa. So anywhere you want to go, you would likely be able to expand your international learnings through the different opportunities that we have through the PMBA program. So experiential learning is an integral part of the PMBA experience. And experiential learning is the idea of learning by doing. So learning by applying the knowledge. Now, we do that through a case-based method in kind of the program. So as you're going through, like, say, your foundational courses, there are major case studies that you'll also do alongside of your foundational courses to make sure you know how to apply this knowledge into solving practical business cases. And then another way we implement experiential learning are through our 3 8-day professional residencies. Now you can see these residencies happen in 3 strategic times in the program: in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end of the program. So they happen kind of like, they allow our students to get basically a full-time dive-in into the content and material of an MBA in the context of a part-time program. So it's pedagogically useful to be able to dive into this type of material in 3 strategic points of the program, but it's also important for building the MBA cohort. So for those of you that have done some research into the value proposition of an MBA, you'll know that one of the major value propositions of an MBA is the cohort itself, is the network itself. So having these 3 intensive residencies in the beginning, middle, and end of the program helps to bring the cohort together. And that's one of the innovations that we've implemented into this PMBA program, is to have residencies. We used to have a program without residencies, so it would take the cohort a little longer to gel, but with the residencies, you immediately start to become each other's best source of not only professional connection, but also academic and social support as well. So, like, you definitely, if you're not an accountant, you don't know anything about accounting, you want to make friends with the accounting professionals in the program. The same thing with finance. So the students have a track record every year. It's amazing. Every year of helping each other get through the program. So it always ends up to be a really collaborative cohort. And and then you help each other both academically through the program, but also you become each other's best source of professional and social support as well. Now you can see here on this slide, we have year 1 of the program. And in year 1 of the program, you're primarily focused on the management foundations like accounting, statistics, finance, marketing. And then you'll move on to year 2, where you have advanced courses. Now they're all laid out here for the weekend scheduling, but in year 2 is an opportunity for you to actually swap out some of these advanced module courses for courses with a full-time MBA cohort, for example, or even courses outside the business school. So that's a unique value proposition of doing your MBA at like a globally regarded institution like UBC, is that we also are part of a global community of, you know, innovators and researchers. So like, let's say you were a computer science grad and, you know, you have the prerequisites to take a really interesting course in AI in the Department of Computer Science. If you get the permission of your academic director and of course the permission of the instructor, that's an opportunity for you to take that course and have that credited towards your MBA, as an example. Also, like if you happen to see a course in the Faculty of Law, for example, that you think would really complement your studies in the MBA, as long as it A, fits your schedule, and B, you know, you get the permission of your academic director and the instructor, you could take that course, which is outside of the business school, and also have that credited towards your MBA as well. So that's one of the kind of offshoot advantages of going to a large research institution like UBC, is there's a community of world-class innovators and researchers and change makers that you can become a part of, not just through the business school, but through the wider business community, either by taking courses with those students and faculties, or also collaborating with them through, you know, initiatives like E at UBC, our Entrepreneurial Launchpad, Creative Instruction Lab West, and courses like our Tech Entrepreneurship class, which is like half MBA students and half students from like Masters of Engineering, Computer Science, Life Sciences. And it's a popular class because it leverages, you know, these, the different abilities of people from different faculties, and then they launch like a product or service that they can bring to market through the MBA program. So that's really quite interesting. A lot of our elective courses in the second year, the most popular ones, would be scheduled in the evenings so that it gives proper reach to our professional MBA students to also take them. But also keep in mind that there is the opportunity to take courses outside of the business school as well. So you can see throughout the course of the program, there is a strong career and professional development forms a cornerstone of your program experience. So it is an integral part of what you get from the PMBA program, is this focus on kind of an individualized and personalized approach to career coaching. So in terms of career coaching, you'll be paired with a one-on-one career coach. So someone that you would work directly with, talking about your specific career goals, where you're coming from, what companies you might be aiming for. And they will also be your coaches in terms of connecting you to some of our alumni that might work in the companies that you're interested in learning more about or applying to. And that can give you really valuable insights into like particular, like things like company culture, what kind of key competencies you want to build in yourself, what kind of key competencies that industry or that company is looking for, and also strategic coaching to get you through those interviews and the salary negotiations as well, which is very important. In terms of career outcomes, Marja is going to go into this in a bit more detail, but I'll just kind of gloss over it here. Our career outcomes fall into two broad categories. Those are career changers, people that are changing both job types and then industry types, and then career promoters. So these are people that are generally like they see an opportunity for growth within their own company. So they, you know, like they take the MBA in order to move into like some more strategy and leadership roles through the MBA program. So you can see some examples of career changers here. You had someone who was a program manager at the start of the program, became a senior associate of venture capital post-program. And then among the career promoters, you can see someone who is a manager of content and partnerships, became a director of program and partnerships post-program. You can see a clear shift to that leadership and strategy role, as well as someone who was a manager of power utilities at an asset management firm, became a VP of asset management post-program. So in all these changes, there's always that theme of shifting from a more operational role to a more leadership strategy role. Great, and in terms of your fellow candidates, or fellow people in your class, you can see this is a snapshot of this year's January entry cohort, a class size. It's maxed out at about 60. So we had 62, we had like, it was already over max. So it's generally a class about like 50 to 60 students, but 60 is the max. We have an average age of 33, but that's just an average. We do have a range of ages that come to us for the MBA program, anywhere from 27 to 52 for last year's cohort. So I want to bring up this point just because I often get the question from students about like whether I'm the right age to do the MBA, and there's no right answer for that. You're ready for the MBA when you're ready to benefit from what an MBA can do for your career. And that could mean that it's early in your career when you've had a couple of progressions already, you've reached the glass ceiling and you need to break through it, and that could have happened early in your career. Or you might actually find yourself a very senior level person, maybe even at the C-suite already, and you like, maybe you got there through technical expertise, and now you've been given all these administrative jobs to run an enterprise, and you need the education to know how to do that. So we've had cases like from one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum where the MBA was appropriate. So, you know, the best way to talk about, like to discuss it, is to actually book a meeting with me, and we can always look at your profile. I can give you examples. People have done similar changes, and learn more about it, because everybody is different. So there's no cookie cutter time to do an MBA. There's no cookie cutter industry we're looking for you to come from. As you can see from our background, like people come from all different backgrounds as well as industry types. But an MBA can be beneficial to anyone in any industry, so long as they're ready to benefit from this challenge that they're going to undertake. So in terms of admissions requirements, we are looking for undergrad GPA of B+, or on a 100% scale, a 76%. Now, like, just keep in mind, in terms of these admissions requirements, these are really just guidelines. They're not hard and set rules. So like, if you fall under on one of these categories or you're unsure, don't discount yourself. Always have a meeting with us. Always reach out to us first so we can actually do an evaluation. We admit on a holistic process. So like, we actually look at your entire candidate profile. So maybe you were a little low on your GPA, but you did better on your standardized tests. That's a way to mitigate certain things. So always reach out to us if you're unsure. These are guidelines only. So in terms of academic achievement, like a B+ in your undergraduate, generally speaking, then standardized tests, we're looking for either the GMAT or the GRE. A competitive average for the GMAT would be a 650, and then for the GRE would be a 320 or more. And then minimum, we're looking for a minimum 550 on the GMAT or 300. So a few words of advice for the GMAT GRE. Firstly, if you, in terms of who prefers what, anecdotally from many years of doing this and observing candidates, students that are more math oriented tend to excel better on the GMAT, whereas students that are more social science, humanities oriented tend to favor the GRE. So that's not scientific, it's just my anecdotal observations. So definitely check out both exams and see which one fits you best. Now, if you do happen to write the test and you don't score the competitive, you like maybe score between the competitive and the minimum, for example, always recommend to keep that score. It's very common for us to see people write this test more than once. So, tying into that word of advice is to set your exam schedule early enough that you have enough time for a rewrite, because rewrites are kind of the norm more than the exception. So if you do score a minimum score, always keep the score. It gives you something to apply with if you need it, but always try to aim for a higher score the next time. Professional experience, we're looking for a minimum of 2 years. Ideally, we're kind of in the 3 to 5 year range as a minimum. But if you do have the 2 years and you feel like you have a compelling reason for wanting to pursue an MBA kind of early in your career, always get in touch with us. We always want to talk with people that are kind of on the extreme end of the experience range to see if this is really the right time for you to do an MBA. Professional references, we require a minimum 2. So ideally 1 from someone that you report directly to, and then the second one could be someone that knows you well in a professional context. There's a variety of written and video essays. They're not very long. So there's 2 250-word essays, 1 500-word essay, and then there's a 90-second video where you answered a preset question, and it's done on your own time. Now, we know you're working, so we're not expecting you to video edit this thing and make it like, video of the year. We're looking for good content. So make sure that you reflect well on the questions and you provide good content. A little tip on the essays is if you have someone proofread your essay and then they can tell you what the question was, that means you've answered the question. So that's always something you want to keep in mind when you're looking at the questions you're answering, is that make sure like you actually answer the question. So for the video, come across as you want to come across in an interview. Good lighting, like dressed appropriately for, like, let's say you were going to an interview, and then good content is the #1 thing we're looking for. English proficiency tests, either the TOEFL or the IELTS, is only required if you did not do one of your degrees in English. So if you did do your degree in English, then you would probably be exempt. If you can always double check with us if you're unsure, but degrees done at English-speaking institutions are going to be exempt from the English requirement. And if you do have to write the test, the standard is 7 on the IELTS, an average, IELTS academic, or 100 on the TOEFL. A personal interview, a 30 to 45-minute personal interview, is the last stage of the process, and you would basically be able to select from a variety of different interview time slots that fit your schedule to conduct the interview, which of course right now is all done by Skype, but in the future, maybe as the restrictions start to lift, we can start to re-implement in-person interviews as well. So you can see in terms of application deadlines, we have 3 deadlines. The first 2 are soft deadlines, soft targets, and then the final deadline in October 13th is the final round deadline. So the first deadline's already passed, but the second round deadline that's coming up July 21st is upcoming, and there's a small scholarship incentive associated with that deadline. So if you do apply with a fully complete application, including test scores and references and everything submitted, you would be eligible for $1,000 off your tuition if you applied with a complete application by July 21st. Now you do have all the way until October 13th to apply, so don't rush your application if you're not ready. So we admit on something called a rolling basis. So what that means is that there is an advantage to applying earlier, because what happens is that, let's say an application that's submitted July 21st will be assessed and given a decision earlier than someone that applies August 1st, for example. And an application that is submitted August 1st, even though it's after the second round deadline, will still be evaluated sooner than someone that submits October 13th, for example. So there is an advantage because the spots do fill up, and last year we did end up with a wait list. So try to avoid the very, very last second if you're able to. Don't rush your application, but do some planning to try to submit earlier if possible. In terms of program fees, I always like to go over this because I get a lot of questions around it. So the full program fee for domestic students is $49,000 and change. And I also often get the question actually is that the full program price? And the reason why I get that question is, if those of you that have done research into top tier MBA programs in Canada will realize that's like approximately half the price of other top tier MBA programs in Canada. So I often get the question of like, why is it so low? Now, not trying to downplay that $49,000 isn't a lot of money, it still is. But the reason why it's $49,000 and not $100,000 is because there's a tuition revenue cap on how much we can charge for domestic tuition. So you're actually benefiting from a highly subsidized education for a top tier education because of being in British Columbia. So do take advantage of that. It's still obviously a lot of money, but it's more manageable than double the price. And the $49,000 is divided into 6 installments that it's paid over the 2 years. So it is divided into smaller chunks that are hopefully more manageable for you to pay. Now, this is our website information as well as our email addresses that you can reach us at. And you can see here at the bottom, there's a Once Hub booking page where you can actually self-book a 30-minute meeting with me. So I totally recommend for any of you that are considering the MBA, a part-time MBA, to please get in contact with me. Always have a discussion to talk about what your specific career goals are. All of you are different. All of you are coming from different backgrounds and experience and have different objectives. So please do not be shy and do book an appointment so we can talk about what it is that the MBA can do for you. So that's it, the last of my presentation. I'd like to just end here. We're going to keep questions until the end of Marja's presentation so we can take questions together. But I'd like to now invite my colleague, Marja Harmer, to join us and give her presentation from the Business Career Centre. Marja, you're mute.
Really nice to see everybody and so many alumni on the call as well. So I'm very excited to see you there. I'm just starting to share my screen, so bear with me a second. Perfect. So thank you again for sacrificing one of our summer evenings. It's so nice to see so many of you and to this call. And our theme today is career success, as Vivian mentioned. So I am going to share some tips on success factors for working professionals. And through that conversation, I'm also going to be sharing how we are helping our MBAs, part-time MBAs, PMBAs to meet their career goals, as well as share some statistics on how our alumni have done and how our current students are doing with their career focus and shift. So a little bit about my background. I'm originally from Finland, but before making Vancouver my home, I was lucky to live in 5 different countries, working, living, and studying before landing to Vancouver. And through that journey, I also had a chance to try many different occupations. So I started as an accountant, moving into marketing, and then my first step in Canada was in higher education. So I have been in recruiting, program management roles, but my biggest focus always has been career advising. And career advising specifically at the Soda School of Business with our MBA population. So you can see that most of my clients who I worked with have been at the PMBA part-time program, where the individuals have been pursuing their degree while working in professional settings. Our theme today is limited visibility. So for those of you who are from Vancouver, this is a snippet of our beautiful waterfront on a foggy day. But having this limited visibility, having this fog around us, is creating challenges. It doesn't allow to know where we want to go. We can't see clearly our goals. And those high rises in the background, they could be opportunities, they could be recruiters, they could be venture capitalists who are hoping to sponsor your next opportunity. But if you are not aware that they are there, you are almost like drifting. You are not moving towards a specific goal. So the work that we do with our students is creating connections. And through the experience of working with so many of our past students, giving ideas for individuals on what might be a good career choice, what kind of skill sets are required in the industries, which venture capitalist companies are sponsoring certain kind of business ideas, and so on. So our goal is here more intention, less drifting, and having a clear vision. So here we see exactly the same spot in the clear day. It is not much easier now to move forward and see what is going on around you and what these opportunities are for you. So exploring what's around you and what kind of choices you have, that is a great starting point for your journey. And a little tip for those who are deciding to go towards the MBA part-time path, during the admissions process, you will be asked questions about your career goals and paths. So now would be a fabulous time to do some reflection on where you are hoping to, what are you hoping to pursue, or what are some specific paths that you want to explore a little bit more. Going back to our foggy picture here. So again, the visibility is again a little bit limited. And sometimes this situation may happen because of your current work situation. Sometimes the reality that is surrounding us is stopping us to assess clearly where our own skill sets are, or what are we capable of doing. So that takes us to our next theme, traps that you might experience in your current path. So we have a list of typical career traps. And some of these traps are because we have chosen an occupation, or we are limited by the geographical opportunities, or it's a certain industry where it's more difficult to get out to. But some of these traps are also could be caused by issues of our blind spots that we are not seeing so well. So it could be over loyalty, it would be heads down invisibility syndrome, it could be an ambition trap, and these factors might be stopping us to move forward. So a lot of the work that we do at Soda School of Business with the Career Centre, and when we are working with our candidates, is to talk about your career blind spots and knowing yourself. Sometimes we are casting a bigger image than we even realize about our skill sets, or sometimes we are not realistic. What are we capable of doing? So self-awareness is one of the big parts of our work that we do through emotional intelligence work and assessments and having good conversations. Where have we experienced obstacles in the path? Similarly, we may cast a shadow that is much larger than we are aware of. So sometimes exercises like 360 reviews from people who really know us well could be a very handy tool to give us a better idea of our capabilities and hidden areas where we may want to improve. So this self-awareness, we are hoping that it's leading awareness of your strengths. It is leading awareness of those areas that you are really good at, but are not necessarily helping you with your career path. It also allows you to identify some development needs and derailers, blind spots, and then creating more awareness of your brand image. So all of these individuals below, they are authentic leaders. They are not trying to be everybody for everyone. They have their own specific style. So I challenge you to think, how would you like to be remembered as an authentic leader? And what traits do you want to bring in as a leader in the future or in your current times? So our work is around self-awareness in leadership development, allowing you to understand what is your current identity, also reflecting on how are the others seeing you and how are others perceiving your skill sets. And then our goal is to align these two areas, which is often called self-accuracy. And when your own identity and others' perceptions are close to each other, then it's much easier to take those steps to move your career forward. I'm sharing a couple of more success factors too. This is from one of our workshops, How to Get Promoted. And it just gives you a very quick idea on areas where what are really important when you are launching your career and what skill sets to develop. So having cognitive capabilities, being driven, having the motivation, learning agility, and ability to take feedback are some of the key skills. And one area how our school is separating themselves from other institutions is that we do a lot of work around the emotional capabilities, capacity, emotional intelligence. And during these uncertain times, ability to show resilience, it has become even more and more important. The next concept here is 70-20-10 rule. And with this specific rule, we are referring to how do we learn in the professional settings. So if you are reflecting your training at this point, engineers, doctors, accountants, 70% of the knowledge is being learned by doing the work. And then we have a 20% of that is learned from the others, and only 10% is coming from formal education. But in the business settings, I find the value of the part-time MBA, PMBA program specifically is that when you are learning concepts in the formal educational settings, you are able to take these to your day-to-day work and practice, which makes your learning much deeper, much more applied, and you can take yourself to the next level much quicker. The last part with this limited visibility is your visibility as an individual within the decision makers. So just reflecting on how do they know that you are there? Do they know that you exist? Do they know your skill sets? How to put your best foot forward? So I want to share some practical tools. These 10 tools here are the typical ways how you can increase your visibility when you are applying role, or if you are increasing your visibility as a business professional. So sharing a couple of tips on certain aspects. So first of all, professional associations. If you are part of the professional association, always trying to be a leader rather than just a member. And within these settings, be the one who's known of sharing best practices within your industry. And thirdly, be a connector. So if you are able to connect other people, you are creating a much stronger network within your chosen profession. Another tactical tip is with mentoring. So we all should have mentors and we all should have multiple members, but ideally make sure that they are from the different age groups so that you can tap into their knowledge and their reflections. So somebody who's maybe 2 years older than you or more senior than you, somebody who's maybe 5 years ahead, and somebody who's 10 years out. Secondly, you are always a better mentor if you have been a mentee yourself. So give opportunities to others learn from you. And then lastly, maintain those mentoring relationships within your organization, but also make sure that you at least have one mentor outside of your organization so that you don't get biased, or you don't get biased advices based on other people's agendas, hidden agendas. At Soda School of Business, we have either functional or leadership quality-based mentor programs. So if mentoring is something that you are hoping to get it with your next career steps, we are really passionate about matching our students with different mentors, and we have a one-on-one conversations on what kind of mentor might be the best for you at this point. Lastly, your visibility is your digital footprint. So what is your online presence like? How is your LinkedIn? What type of message is that sending to the others? So first of all, LinkedIn should never be a copy of your resume. It should give more information who you are as a person, what do you believe in as a leader, and what have you learned during your journey from the different roles. It also should always have a more futuristic goal. So it is not necessarily reflecting today's position, but where you want to go as your next step. At Soda, during the first residency, when individuals start the PMBA program, we start our career center work with a LinkedIn deep dive, and we have additional resources to make sure that your online presence is reflecting who you are as a person. So 3 things to remember. So if we are stuck in the fog or a situation where we don't have a clear visibility, trying to reflect and create goals. Secondly, try to increase that visibility. And thirdly, it is that self-awareness, knowing where your blind spots are. So now we are looking at the same specific place, but with a much wider perspective, seeing much more opportunities and with some reflection. So for those who feel that our MBA program is the right move, I'm looking forward to seeing many of you in our January start. But I also hope that regardless of whatever your choice is, you are able to do a reflection as well as kind of assess what is a good place for you at this time. Now moving on to career outcomes. So our part-time MBA 2019 class, we had about 32 people in that class who graduated. And I wanted to give a quick snapshot on how they advanced their career. So about 1/3 of the class were moving on with their current organizations and received promotions. We had a number of students who were moving forward by changing companies and going to either same or higher level opening doors to new networks and new opportunities. In this particular class, we had a specifically large number of entrepreneurs. In the beginning of the program, we had 2 entrepreneurs, but we had 4 other individuals starting their own businesses by the end of the program. And then we had a handful of individuals who were career changers. And what the career changer means is they changed both their functional area that they were doing as well as the industry. And then, as usual, we did have individuals who didn't have a change. Maybe they were already in their dream organization, just waiting that that right opportunity comes forward. But these statistics were reflecting our employment situation for 2019 class, 4 months after graduation. What I'm also very proud of, that many of our candidates were able to do multiple changes. So those individuals with the little stars had a double change. So they were able to change their career path twice. So for example, an individual who might have ended up going to consulting may have changed the industry to another industry first before joining the consulting company at the end of the program. Similarly, somebody who was changing new companies, maybe they were coming from an organization where they were truly stuck, but when they got to a new organization, their potential was noticed and they got that second promotion there relatively quickly. What comes to the compensation, this is the same cohort, and this gives you an idea for enhancers, career changes, and promoters. For those who were entrepreneurs, according to our standards, we are not collecting those individuals' salaries. So these were the ones who were really working as a full-time individuals in these 3 settings. So these were base compensations. So many individuals had a remarkable bonuses, both at the beginning of their MBA and of course at the end of the post of their MBA. And I'm also wanting to share our upcoming graduating class of 2021. So these folks, we have 6 months left, but 65% of the class have already experienced the career change. So career change is not something that happens at the end of the program. I want to make a clear message that for some individuals, it may happen as soon as 2 months after starting the program. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this class is doing at the time of their graduation, but currently we're about 6 months away before they are doing their last module. For the 2020 class that just graduated, when I was taking a look at their statistics last in April, we were at the 83%, but our collection period ends with that particular cohort at the end of the summer. So hopefully I have an opportunity to update you with their career progression numbers. So here we are. It's time for questions, and Vivian will be answering any questions related to admissions program. And if anybody has any questions for me on specifically to career advancement, happy to do that. But we have a fabulous alumni panel also coming in to share their stories. So here we go.
Great. So thank you so much, Marja, for that presentation. Really interesting statistics and insight into the career development journey. So I want to ask our participants, if you have a question, please input it in the Q&A chat box, and I'll be drawing questions from that chat box. So please do implement the questions, and I will be watching for them to come through to pose to Marja, or if it's a question for admissions and recruitment, I can answer it as well. Okay, just going through some of the question rounds here. Okay, well, maybe as we wait for some, okay, there are some questions that's not related to, well, one question related to the payments is like whether the tuition payment is made all at once or in installments. And so to answer that question, the tuition payments are paid in 6 installments over the course of 2 years. And then another question is, again, with regards to the tuition payment, how does the program fees change regarding residencies. If you enroll as an international student and receive PR during the program, how does that work? Very good question. So as the installment payments are paid over 6 installments, let's say you were in the PR application process, but you didn't get your PR card before the first installment. The first installment will be paid under the international rate. And then once you get your PR card, all the rest of the installments will be paid in the domestic rate. Here's a good question. And it's posed to me, but I'd like to get Marja's take on it as well. But it's a question is asked, someone with a BBA, should they do an MBA or should they specialize in a specific area instead? And I think, Marja, you've worked with many people that have gotten BBAs or BComs that have also done an MBA. So I think if you could like kind of spare your thoughts on that question there.
Right. In some years, we have about 20% of the students who actually have a previous undergraduate degree, so that is not unusual. I hate to give this answer, but it really depends what is your specific career goal and where you want to go. So there's nothing, personally, I have my undergraduate in business and I also pursued my master's in business, so for me it did make sense, but it really depends what skill set and what kind of knowledge you want to get at the next level. So I'm happy to, if you want to address this question more privately with me, and if you want to indicate what is your career goal, then I would be in a better position to say what really makes sense. Would that work? Perfect.
Yeah, and just so for those that are participants, you can actually direct a question like in our Q&A box. If you want a question directly to Marja, for example, you can say it's to Marja, and then she can answer privately as well if it's like kind of a personal profile question. So keep that in mind. Marja will be answering questions throughout the course of the evening as well. And another question that I think Marja can share some thoughts on, is there a significant amount of on-campus recruiting?
So absolutely, we do have companies coming on campus for this fall. Unfortunately, it's going to be virtual, but there are numerous organizations who are starting to come on campus early September, and those campus recruitment events are triggering all the way till the spring. So that is definitely one of those opportunities to get to the next level. A lot of the work that we do is actually through individual connections. So often the level where PMBAs want to go might be beyond the campus recruiting level. So that's why having that huge network of alumni helping us has been a very strong way of landing to a post-MBA role.
Great. Another question here from Marja. I understand, so this is from someone called Curtis. I understand the mentors are more personal than part of the program. However, while working with our mentors, are there any engagements specific to UBC, such as events or activities? If so, can mentors be brought in external to UBC? So maybe a question around, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so if I'm understanding correctly, so we do have alumni mentors as well as business professionals. Number of our mentors have been in kind of senior C-suite level. Some of them are already retired, so they are really giving back. With our mentor program, we are organizing and assisting individuals to go and participate in events, and our mentors join 3 of our networking events. They are invited to those events every year. So that's just part of the program. So potentially you have exposure to more than just one individual who's mentoring. So hopefully that answers your question.
Great. And then another question for Marja. I'm in software engineering and want to move to product management. Is this a transition you see often, and do you think an MBA will help?
Absolutely. So any given class, we have had individuals with this specific career path. And to help these individuals to move forward even faster, we actually have a product management, product marketing mentor program. So the work that you do with your career advisor, the advice on the courses that you are recommended to be taken, and then the mentor program. So that has been really the foundation. So we have a roadmap for specifically individuals who have technical background and who are hoping to go towards these product management, product marketing roles.
Great. And then a question from Varshney. Thank you for the great presentation, Marja. Can you please share any example of PMBA students utilizing the program resources to create a value for his or her employer, resulting in promotion for that individual? So there's many of these, obviously, but maybe share some of your favorites.
Oh goodness, there's so many people who have had promotions. And as I said, it's typically about 30% of the class who will be experiencing this particular career path. Sometimes companies, when you're pursuing your MBA, sometimes companies are getting worried that you might be a flight risk if you take an MBA. So what happens is they start suddenly doing career mapping with you, which has been never on the table before the program. And this, of course, depends on the industries. And any given year, we also have organizations where the companies aren't seeing the value of the MBA. But most of the cases, it has been a trigger for promotion, and it has been a trigger to have those conversations, either your boss's boss or even more senior management, on where do you see yourself after the program or within the next 2 years. So it's a very, very typical scenario. Also, when individuals are hoping to move from one functional area and hoping to try something new. So I can currently think at least one of our MBAs who's currently in the program, who was an HR generalist. And he really have had a solid background in that area, but he really wanted to try going into sales management. And he's jumped from an individual contributor as an HR generalist to now sales manager. The company really believes into this individual, the new skill set, and wanted to give this opportunity to change to a different area at the higher level. So that is just one example from the current student body.
That's great. Thanks so much, Marja. We have another question. This person's mentioning with, like in your presentation, with only 4 career changers in last year's cohort, is it common that most candidates have very specific career objectives in mind, or is it common for some candidates to not necessarily know exactly 100% what their career path is going to be?
I would say when people come to the program, they may have an idea, or they may have not have a good idea, but then they might be inspired by one of our professors, and suddenly people's views shift. So what I see this program giving is an opportunity to ideate different paths for you. So example, I had a conversation with our current student who is actually working for government as an auditor. But in the beginning of her journey with us, she wanted to be an entrepreneur. So we put together entrepreneurial map, but she also happened to have a promotion with her company. So she felt that loyalty trap of they've given me an opportunity. Now, this same individual also had an opportunity to do some of our international programming around the entrepreneurship. And that basically triggered a high gear. So within the last two months, I would like to say, she also took an entrepreneurial finance course. So she's now ready to launch, hoping to launch her business in November, with the target market being in Australia. So you never know. Some individuals have a bit more difficult time finding what that goal is, and it might be just crystallizing after the first year is over. But as I said, everybody's different.
That's great. Thanks, Marja. So please feel free to continue asking your questions in the Q&A box, but I have a question for Marja, actually dovetailing on something you mentioned in your answer, actually. Can you speak to some of those changes and the support students have had when they're transitioning outside of the Vancouver market? Because I know we've had quite a few of those in the past as well.
So it's going back to our alumni network and our alumni network's willingness to be helpful. So we have had a number of individuals in Canada. One of the locations where people seem to be going or have been going within the last 3 years, it has actually been Ottawa. And internationally, the Silicon Valley has been a very active spot. So, for example, a couple of years back, I believe it was actually Gillian's class, we had a group of students doing a field trips in San Francisco. So Rodrigo, myself, we were working hard to try and find some connections so that our students would have an opportunity to do some company visits there and learn directly from our alumni. And during these virtual times, we have organized within the last 4 or 5 weeks 4 networking sessions, and we also have alumni participating from different locations. So that was a really great way to take the benefit of these unusual times and bring in new individuals who are not always able to join our alumni student mingling events.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much, Marja. And now we have a question from Adrian. Are there any companies or industries that recruit particularly actively from the PMBA program?
So we have companies that seem to have a bigger legacy with the PMBA program. So any given year, we normally have individuals working at Stem Cell Technologies. We have individuals working at Best Buy, McKinsey. The last 2 hires have been from the PMBA or part-time MBA pool. And similarly, Deloitte always reaches out to our students. So we have a solid alumni base in those organizations. Similarly, I'm sure Armando may want to expand to this, but SAP has been fabulous for us. So we are very thankful for that. So those would be some of the companies just top of my head.
Mm-hmm. And then as we wait for some more questions to come in for the Q&A, I wanted to throw a question out there. Can you talk a little bit about the kind of the emotional intelligence development kind of programming that you have at the BCC? Because from my understanding, like UBC has made a significant investment. Like the BCC is a huge investment in this program, and it's scientific in nature, and it's really future thinking, because a lot of like futurists or CEOs, they think of the soft skills as some of the most important skills you're going to have in the changing world in the future. So I'm very curious to have a bit more detail from you, Marja, about the services that we offer in terms of the emotional capital development.
Absolutely. So we use ECR methodology, and it is a European organization that has done the emotional intelligence work specifically in the leadership settings rather than maybe individual emotional intelligence. So really hoping to grow leaders. So we took their methodology on about 4 or 5 years ago. All of our career advisors, we are certified. We are certified to do career assessments, as well as go through 360 reviews where you have more people giving feedback on your emotional intelligence potential. So that I would say about 85% of our students in the PMBA program takes an advantage of this particular service. And then we also make sure that we have workshops on the topic, specific skill sets, and also we have added positive psychology as being part of this, given that one of my colleagues is specialized in that specific section. We also make sure that during the residencies, the residency 2, we are tying the residency 2 topics, which are negotiations, skills, business development, and sales. And we go through them through a lens of emotional intelligence. So that would be maybe the brief view how we do our emotional intelligence work. And then we give students homework and reflections exercises, and that counts towards our professional development credits. So that's part of our work.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Marja. Just to give poor Marja a little bit of a break, I'll take some of the questions that are more admissions related. Let's see. So someone mentioned that the cutoff for GPA, there's a kind of a written cutoff for a GPA, and this person has an MS, a Master's of Science. will the GPA be for the bachelor's degree or for the master's degree? Actually, that's a really good question. So we do take a holistic approach when we look at your kind of your degree grades. For your bachelor's degree particularly, we are looking more at the third and fourth year rather than the first and second year. So more senior level courses. And of course, if you have a master's degree on top of that, we would also be taking into consideration the master's degree grades as well. So we get that question a lot because a lot of people are concerned over the first and second year of your bachelor's degree. We know that this is a thing that people tend not to do that well in their first and second year of their degrees. So if you feel like you're in that boat, don't worry, many people are in the same boat with you. So so just keep in mind that with your bachelor's degree, even if you don't have a master's degree, we are looking more at the third and fourth year of your grades. And then if you do have a master's degree, that's great. We would also be looking at those senior level master's degree credits as well. Great. So let's see if there's another question. Okay, so this question has to do with writing the GMAT and then the application. So when you submit an application, or when you or should you submit an application first and then write the GMAT, or should you like put it all together? So you can actually start your MBA application without the GMAT score. You can actually submit even your application just with the date of your intended GMAT write. So there is an advantage because everything is already done. You've had time to reflect on the questions and you know, like put a strong application in. So then all you have to do is to write your GMAT score and then submit that score. So you do so it is possible for you to kind of perfect your application for the July 21st deadline. And there is a small window of opportunity if you like, let's say you had to do a rewrite, like you wrote your test before July 21st, but you didn't get a good score. There is a small grace period for you to get the official documents in after the July 21st deadline, where you would still be eligible for the early scholarship deadline. So if you have more questions around that, just feel free to get in contact with us, Calvin. But that's basically how that works. Like you can get your application in before the GMAT score. Okay, and then another question is admissions related. Would pass, fail, or credit defail courses on your transcript reflect poorly on your application? Well, fails would reflect poorly on your application. I mean, that's like a failed course. But pass, fail, like credit fail, like that doesn't, or you know, credit or fail courses, they won't impact because you've chosen to make that course credit or pass, right? You've chosen not to have that grade graded, so that doesn't impact you. Same thing with audited courses, that doesn't impact you, but a fail like obviously does. So so that could impact, but keep in mind, like if your fail was in the first or second year, it doesn't impact as badly as if you like failed a senior level course, as an example.
If I can also talk about the difference between GMAT and GRE, specifically from career perspective. So for those individuals who are looking to or considering management consulting or strategy consulting as their career goal, I would strongly advise you to write GMAT rather than GRE. So the GMAT is often their preferred way, and that's, if you do it now, then you don't have to rewrite your GMAT degree if you decide to really move forward with this and this particular path. All right?
Yeah, and so we also have the SCMP program, which is a strategy consulting mentorship program, which is actually run by our alumni mentors that are working in strategy consulting. So if you, it's kind of like a 4-weekend boot camp, right, Marja? And so if
that's right.
You do something like over 100 case studies over those weekends, so it's to simulate how challenging the actual industry is. But if you can pass all the case studies, you are guaranteed first round interviews with all the consulting firms. So that is really significant because you basically you would basically bypass about 75% of the initial applicant funnel, which is really significant. And yeah, and then like have a much higher chance of landing in strategy consulting. So if any of you guys are interested in strategy consulting, do keep in mind, write the GMAT. That's the only time where we would prescribe one test over the other, is if people are interested in strategy consulting and they are looking for, at least for the industry and for SCMP program, they are looking for scores of 700 or higher. So thanks for bringing that up. That is a really important point. We have one more question for Marja from Shivang. how does Solder help candidates network, get guidance, or get their products in front of potential investors? It would be helpful to know if the alumni can share some anecdotal, okay, so the second part is for the alumni, or it would be helpful for you, Marja, if you want to share some anecdotal experience as well.
So it again goes to matching with our alumni in the venture capital field. UBC has a fabulous resources for overall for our entrepreneurship at UBC. So there's a lot of mentoring, there's a lot of support. But personally, when we have had individuals who need help sharpening their pitch, that's something that we do, like instead of mock interviews, we basically have a mock pitch sessions, and you would get a feedback, first round from me, second round from our alumni. How did that go? Where's the help? UBC Alumni has recently also announced basically help Solder alumni entrepreneurs to bring their products forward. So if you go to our UBC Solder alumni site, you can see organizations that are studied our alumni, and any of our current or alumni who have started businesses, we are happy to feature you there. This is a relatively new initiative. I believe it was launched only about a couple of months ago.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Marja. So I think that will be the last question for our Q&A. I think we really worked Marja for all the Q&As, so let's give her a break. All of our alumni are now here for the panel events. So, so I'd like to welcome the alumni. Please turn on your video feeds so we could start the alumni panel and say hi to Marja, because I know she is pretty popular among all of our alumni. So, so I think we're just missing Armando. Can you turn on your video feed? Maybe Armando is a little, oh, I think he's on. Okay, cool. So everybody's here. So thank you again to Marja for the careers presentation. So now we get to introduce you to 5 of our amazing part-time MBA alumni. So just to start things off, I'll have some questions for the alumni just to start things off. But to those of you that are participants, please use this time right now to think of questions you might want to ask of our alumni, because they're here to make this an interactive panel and to share their experiences. So do take that opportunity. So why don't we just start off by everyone just telling us who you are, who you work for, or what companies you're a CEO of, for example, and you know, what you were doing before the MBA. So I don't know who's first on your screen, but Daniel is first on my screen. So why don't you start, Daniel?
Sure, happy to. Good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel Mirkovic. I'm the president and one of the co-founders of Square One Insurance, which is an online home insurance provider that operates across most of Canada. Prior to starting the part-time MBA program, I was a senior manager at the British Columbia Automobile Association, also working in insurance. And I was with the organization for a total of 13 years before I left to start Square One.
Great, thanks, Daniel. And then next, why don't we go with Jillian? Oh, Jillian, you're mute.
Sorry.
No worries.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Jillian. So currently I'm the managing director at Kinetics Medicine, which is an orthopedic clinic that specializes in chronic pain treatments for joint pain. Prior to that, I was working in healthcare. I was a registered nurse in the ICU for about 7 or 8 years. And I did some project management as well in the corporate side of the hospital.
Awesome. Thanks, Jillian. How about Gurinder?
Hey, my name is Gurinder Parmar. I graduated in 2018 from the part-time MBA program. Before that, I was a mechanical engineer designing mining plants and oil and gas plants across Canada and across North America. And now I'm at McKinsey as an associate.
Great, thanks, Gurinder. And then Joyce.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joyce, last name is Ip, and I graduated from the part-time MBA program in 2016. I'm currently the founder and director of Lumen Consulting, and we specialize in organizational transformation and strategy consulting. Prior to the MBA, I was a consultant deep within risk management and, ironically, pandemic planning. So it's been quite an interesting couple months seeing it unfold.
Awesome. And then finally, Armando.
Hello, my name is Armando. Currently, I'm the VP of consulting sales for SAP. I manage the business for the Western Canada region, and also nationally for ENR, which is energy and natural resources, which includes oil and gas, mining, and utilities. Before the MBA, when I joined the MBA, I was a pre-sales engineer for a small analytics software firm. So I was a technical sales engineer when I joined the MBA.
Awesome. And I think an area of interest for a lot of students actually is to know what your undergraduate major was. So maybe quickly just going through no particular order, just let us know what your undergraduate major was and your year of graduation from the part-time MBA. Daniel, maybe?
Sure. Okay. My undergrad was a BCom degree, specialized in finance, also from UBC School of Business, and I graduated from the part-time MBA program in 2007.
Great.
My undergraduate degree was a Bachelor of Science in Nursing from BCIT, and I graduated from the part-time MBA program in 2019.
I did a mechanical engineering degree from UBC, and then, did specialize in finance while I did my part-time MBA in 2018.
And then Armando?
So I'm industrial and systems engineering in University in Mexico, Monterrey Institute of Technology, and then I finished my MBA in 2013.
Great. And then Joyce?
My undergraduate was in Bachelor of Arts Psychology at UBC and graduated 2016.
Great. So you can see that our alumni come from very diverse backgrounds. You have arts graduates to engineering, to BCom grads, to nursing. So I do get the question often from candidates whether I come from the right background. So you can see all these successful people come from different backgrounds, and they're all equally successful in their area of chosen professions. So hopefully this is a compelling story for those of you who are wondering whether it's the right fit or whether you come from the right background. So question to the alumni panel, can you tell us a little bit about how the Sauder MBA impacted your career trajectory? So anyone can start.
Sure, I'll jump in. It was quite transformational for me. I was very fortunate in that I had a lot of promotions while I was at BCA, and the part-time MBA program helped accelerate those promotions. It built my confidence, which then in turn, helped me perform better or just earn the respect. It almost gave me instant credibility with many of my peers who at the time were somewhat older than me. And so that was something that was quite transformational. So as I mentioned, when I started the program, I was a senior manager. Within a couple months of being in the program, I was promoted to director. And then prior to graduating from the program, I was promoted to vice president. And then shortly after the program, I was once again promoted and my portfolio expanded. But the program is definitely a great tool, but so much of it is actually being able to apply what you've learned or you're learning in the program. And I had great opportunity to do that with my employer, and that, in turn generated the promotions.
Mm-hmm. And I think something that Daniel kind of left out is he actually, when he got the promotion to VP, he was the youngest ever VP at BCA. I think you got the promotion by the age of 30 to VP, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, just too humble to mention it himself, but that was a really interesting point when I was talking to Daniel about his kind of career promotion. And then can you tell us a little bit about how the MBA kind of assisted you, or like, you know, the learnings that you got from the MBA or the network assisted you in launching your own business a few years after you graduate?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my co-founders, Jason Vanderzam, I met through the part-time MBA program. That was fantastic. But so much of what was actually taught us in the program, we applied as we were building the business plan and the business case for square one. So many people don't actually take that step, and then when they're ready to launch or they're working forward, they encounter an obstacle and they just don't know how to deal with it because they have so many different things. Because we had this business plan that, you know, you learn about in the program, we were able to go back to the business plan. It almost became our Bible during that first year. So it had contemplated almost everything that we needed to do during our implementation, getting ready to launch, and we were able to refer back to that. We had our financials, we had our strategy in there, our marketing plan, our IT plan, our HR plan, sales, all of it was basically captured within that program. So it was very powerful. I know for me, one of the concerns I had going into the program was that my undergrad was in finance.
Yeah.
Also from UBC. So I was worried, like, am I actually going to get a lot out of this program? And it was, as I said, very game changing because I had the latest theory on business principles and practices. And so when I was at, you know, dealing with other executives at BCA, they just weren't able to kind of operate at the same level because they didn't have those fundamentals. I was teaching them, and that put me in a really powerful position at the Auto Club, but it also, again, set us up for success here at Square One.
Wonderful. So amazing story, of course, and also it's good to hear from someone that has done a BCom, especially like a BCom at UBC as well, that you did find the MBA to be very good value added to come back to do it at UBC. Thanks for sharing, Daniel. So next, I'm just going to pick now because you guys are too slow. So Gurinder, why don't you tell us about how the PMBA impacted your career trajectory?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty sweet, I think, on a high level. It worked out really well for me. Like working with Mario, we charted out right at the beginning where some of my strengths were and like areas of opportunity from a career perspective. And then like having that coach, that career coach, was super transformational for me. Just someone that gave me feedback, like unbiased feedback. So like, thank you again to Marja. I'm sure many of us will say that many times today. And then the second piece that helped me out a lot was the people, like my colleagues, like folks that I met that were going through the same struggles while we were working, right? We were able to bounce ideas off of one another and talk about like problems that we were facing that aren't always in the textbooks, right? And it was more like getting a few more perspectives and working through that. And then also like alumni, like Joyce as an example, right? I was able to like suck her into like my like aspirations to do consulting. And I was able to get like that guidance from people that are a few steps ahead who have taken the MBA and understand what it takes to succeed and chart out a bit of a path that maybe Mario wasn't seeing on the ground live what's happening kind of in the economy today. And so those three things, like I would say the biggest part was the people, like, and for me, that helped me get to where I wanted to go. So.
That's great. And can you tell us a little bit about like the transition? Because Gurinder, you did like one of those like transitions from like engineer to like top tier consulting. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because there's a lot of people that are interested in that type of transition as well.
Yeah. So honestly, I was very happy where I was working as an engineer, solving like problems and being able to bring the business lens as like Daniel mentioned, provided me instant credibility to speak to more than just one group of stakeholders in my organization. And I felt like I got like a shot in the arm to start moving up in my organization. And I was really enjoying that. But like within a couple of months or like, I guess half a year or so, my organization opted to like divest and sell that business unit off. So I was in a position where I actually tried to understand how my organization could sell and like how my industry was kind of dying. And it just so happened that like consultants were the ones that were making kind of the suggestions. And like, it just doubled my focus on like, if they can be making these recommendations with having no idea about like how my business works, like how is it that they're tackling these problems? And like, I just doubled down and focused on like learning more about consulting and going that path. One thing that was super helpful that is really only available to like the UBC is a program called SCMP. And so, I mean, I'm happy to explain it later or offline to folks, but it is kind of a mentorship program that one can go through, and you get even more coaching from folks that are in the field for consulting, and they kind of give you the guidance you need to be able to manage the interviews and succeed on the job.
Perfect. Thanks, Gurinder. So if anybody does have questions in our audience about like that transition to like consulting, like do feel free to pose those questions. You can pose it directly to Gurinder as well, and I'll pick it up in the chat in the Q&A. Next, why don't we talk to Joyce? Why don't you tell us a little bit about how the MBA helped with your career transformation?
Sure. I think probably the best way to explain it is it's been one of the richest sources of business development. When I started off in the program, I really entered not knowing what exactly I wanted to do afterwards, but just really from a perspective, I just wanted to learn as much as possible. So I really made an effort during the program to reach out to professors, reach out to alumni, reach out to classmates, and just kind of plead please help me. I don't know what I'm doing. What can I learn from you? And that's been extremely fruitful, because after graduation, I got promoted to partner at my risk management firm, and then wanted to transition out of risk management planning and just really look at what else is there. And because I took the entrepreneurial finance course, and I think Vivian or Mari might have both mentioned that earlier, I met Richard McKellar, who's the managing partner at Chrysalix, and spent a year and a half working for them, just readily understanding, is VC the right fit for me? And actually that's really what helped propel me into founding my own consulting firm, because I really realized it's the organizational piece, not so much clean tech consulting clean tech investment that I'm really interested in. And it's the connection I made through working with Richard and also his network that I got some of the first business development and clients. And so it's really, I have to give all the credit to going through this program and the connections I've made. That's really helped me propel my career forward.
Awesome. And Jillian, why don't you tell us about your how the MBA impacted your career trajectory?
It was hugely transformational for me. I found my career in nursing was amazing. I loved it. But I felt like I had a very narrow focus on in terms of my perspective on the world and the way that it operated. It was basically kind of like life or death. Nothing really else matters. Or nothing else really matters, but there was a whole other side of the world and the way that it operated that I didn't understand and didn't know, like kind of had a chosen ignorance about. And although I had lots of purpose and perspective from ICU, I felt like I was missing out a lot. So it opened up a lot of opportunity for me in terms of, I didn't feel like I would be pigeonholed into healthcare for the rest of my life, but if I wanted to, I could stay there and there'd be lots of different opportunities. So it was differentiating from colleagues that opened up the door for other opportunities and learning about other roles that I never knew existed and other positions and career opportunities that I didn't know about. And that was from having conversations and opening up my network to different groups of people that I met maybe would never have felt confident speaking to. So I think Daniel mentioned before, credibility was a big part of that, and confidence in approaching those kind of conversations and feeling like I had something to contribute meaningfully was part of that. I think also like learning about your own capacity, like there's nothing easy about this journey. So I think figuring out what you're capable of, and I kind of felt like when I finished, like I can do anything. If I got through that, I kind of learned things that I felt like were off limits to me, that I felt like I was going to be really bad at or just wouldn't have approached, and I got through it. So it gave me a lot of confidence in terms of things that I could take on and reasonably do well at. So yeah, I think the privilege of a struggle sometimes is a good thing to go through and experience. And yeah, I got great friends, great colleagues, and a network I can tap for so many different things. So it was an awesome experience for me.
Yeah, that's great, Jillian. And as someone like that was like working pretty operationally in the healthcare field before you went into the MBA program, is this like where you are now? Is this where you expected to end up, or did you like have a lot of changes and things in between going from being a nurse to where you are now?
I'll be honest, I didn't have much of a plan. it kind of unfolded for me organically. Right when actually the changes for me related to the MBA started happening almost as soon as I was accepted into the MBA, because I applied for different jobs because I was going into a educational experience. So I couldn't work shift work anymore. So I applied for a different role within the hospital, which was project management, which I felt like a complete imposter applying for, but I got it. And that transformed into other roles, and just, I think, being open to more opportunities, and, opportunities came up out of conversations, organic conversations that turned into consulting, that turned into a role, that turned into a small business. So there was lots of different things that kind of unfolded, but were brought to me because of, I guess, my confidence in having different conversations or meeting new people.
Okay, that's interesting. So the MBA did open like a new network of people for you to engage with as well, to bounce some of these ideas off of.
Yeah, I think so. And it just opened up my own eyes in terms of things that, doing things that I didn't, stepping outside of my comfort zone in applying for jobs that I felt kind of unqualified for, and then realizing I could do that, and learning about different roles, other roles that existed that were alongside that.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Jillian. And then finally, Armando, how did the MBA impact your career trajectory?
Yeah, for me it was a double reason, right? Like when I joined the MBA, I had just immigrated to Canada. I've been working here for probably a couple years, and soon enough I realized that I felt that I was missing not just the business component, because I was a bit about like, pre-sales, kind of getting into the sales, doing sales in Canada, but like I really need that business knowledge to complete my career, right? So when I joined, there was two reasons. Number one, as an immigrant to the country, I really wanted to settle roots in Western Canada. I had just moved to Vancouver. Just like someone said, my network in the region was next to nothing, right? I was working a remote job. So I was really looking for more like expand my network, expand the knowledge. And in addition, what I found is that I found myself selling into a lot of the C-suite, going to meetings, and I felt that insecurity, right? Like when I presented to a CFO the first time, I was just like, oh my God, what am I going to talk about here, right? And then going through the program really gave me that, not that boost in confidence, not that I'm like a CFO, but at least I could have a conversation, right? My credibility really went off the roof, right? And that was demonstrated in the way I was doing my job, how much effective I was actually having business conversations, right? And at that point in time, like I was trying to make a break into sales, and me as an immigrant, having an engineering degree from a different country with an accent, I felt like a little bit like everything was against me. And really, it's the knowledge and the skills, the personal skills, the network, and the technical and finance knowledge I got in the MBA that really allow me to excel at my job, right? Like I didn't come to the MBA thinking that I wanted to change career. I just really wanted to get better, and just like Gillian and Daniel said, like see where I can take it from there, right? I didn't really have a solid plan, and yeah, like during graduation, actually did a change in jobs during the program. I took all the knowledge I had from my engineering degree, which is one of the questions, by the way, from Santiago, and really what the MBA did, it just augmented a lot of the foundational knowledge I had from my university, really took it to the next level, and that allowed me to change jobs and fully turn into sales during the program. And it's funny, like when I tried to change before the program, it was like, really, you want to be in sales? But then as I was doing the program, it kind of like gave me the, oh, we're right, you're doing an MBA, makes sense, right? And it gave me that credibility that, okay, now you're part of the club, right? Like of the business people, so come in, right?
Yeah.
And then from there, just I tried to move up, and one thing led to another. Now I'm here.
That's perfect. Yeah, I've heard from a lot of alumni that when you do the MBA, it's like, definitely an MBA is not just a piece of paper, right? Like you can get a piece of paper anywhere, but sometimes there's a signaling effect that happens when you like decide that you're going to do an MBA. So like, wow, this person's serious. And then of course, all the auxiliary things come in, like you work with a network, you have access to career coaches, there's mentors, you can bounce ideas off of, you start building the confidence. So yeah, it ties in a lot with some of the things that you mentioned that you experienced, like just being able to have a seat at the table and feel confident enough to actually say something.
And if you just want to add something, again, it's not just the confidence, but it also, it demonstrates, the character of one, right? The one person, because then you're saying that you're working full time or part time, and then you're taking time off from your busy life, which everyone, we all work, we know how busy we are. Just go to school, improve yourself, right? And that speaks about a character that then when executives or leaders, someone looking for the next generation of people to promote, or leaders, or a business partner like Daniel, is like, well, this is someone that is really, you don't have a question on the character and integrity of that person because of what they're doing on their free time. They're trying to better themselves. And I noticed that change while I was going through the program, and that definitely opened so many more doors than I had before, right? And I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing that, Armando. So now I'm going to start taking some questions from the chat box. So a few questions have come in surrounding, like asking specifically those grads that come from non-BCom backgrounds, whether you had difficulty applying the concepts or difficulty learning some of those really hard foundational courses. So those of you from like non-BCom backgrounds, like from arts, like more social science backgrounds, like how did you find that experience learning all these topic areas, and did you have difficulty applying it?
Sure, I can, you want me to jump in, Vivian?
Yeah, for sure.
Sure. So I actually get that question a lot coming from a psychology background. I think even going through my undergrad, business was just sort of this icky topic, if you will, amongst psychology students. My first class was in accounting, and that was probably one of the most difficult things to try to grasp without any sort of background knowledge. What was really helpful was the prep courses that Sauder offered. Not only that was offered, but it was in person when I did the MBA. What helped was actually set that community of learning amongst my peers, and also that weekend pulse, if you will, of making sure that you really switch on your learning brain. It's not easy, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but I think Armando articulated this very nicely, that you're committing to this and it speaks to your character. So if you really want this knowledge, you'll figure out a way to make it work, and really lean on your classmates. I was really blessed to have a group of wonderful classmates that were bankers, that were accountants, and the first thing they said was, anybody that is struggling with the topic, we're here to help. And it happened vice versa, right? When marketing and OBHR came up, I was able to pull on my psychology knowledge and help them. And so that's, I think, really important to set that out right at the foundation. And with that, you'll be able to succeed.
Awesome. Thanks. Anybody else from maybe like a non-business background that want to add to like what the journey was academically and applied was like for the MBA?
Well, I just quickly, for me, it was a double one, because it was a non-business background from engineering, but then I also realized very soon that I learned all my math in Spanish. So even when I was doing accounting, right, I was counting in Spanish, and my classmates were like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Don't distract me." Like, so it was in my case, the numbers were the easy part, right? But really getting into more like when we talk about, all those classes about negotiation, like all that more like social human aspect of it. I thought I was a negotiator until I realized I wasn't, right? In one of those first classes. So it was, it really complements, right? Like it's challenging, it's scary, like someone said, but you're there. I think the difference between university and this is like, you're there because you want to be there, and it's that because when you can't do it, you're like, it's not like I want to be the best in class. Sometimes you do, but I really want to get the best out of this, right? it takes on a whole different challenge and an experience of learning something that is completely out of your comfort zone, right? So it's an interesting feeling that is hard to explain until you're there.
Yeah, for sure. Great. So thanks for
Yeah,
offering. Yes.
just to add, even if you have a business program, business background, the program is challenging. First year of the program, the entire program, but the first year of the program is challenging. So even if you have a solid understanding of accounting and finance and strategy and all of those different things, the program is challenging because you're learning a lot. There's lots of case studies and you're building your interpersonal skills and all these different types of skills that you don't always call upon. So I would say I was initially concerned, like, am I really going to get that much out of this program? You will. It is challenging. You will learn a lot, even if you have a business background.
Great. That's good to hear, because I do have a lot of BComs asking me, like, will I be challenged at all? So it's good to hear from a founder and CEO that they did find it challenging and worthwhile. Great. So we have a question specifically for Jillian. It's for someone from Tim, and he thanks you for your advice. And he'd like to know, like, he also works as a frontline healthcare worker. He's a registered dietitian with an aspiration of exploring more and more of the business and career world. And he's asking, Jillian, did you find the transition into a business program perhaps more difficult relative to your classmates? Because you are like from a healthcare field, so it's kind of diversely different from people from BCom engineering and stuff like that. And do you have any tips on how to be proactive to minimize the gap?
So yes, it was tough for sure. Like when I started the program, I didn't even know how to use Excel, which I don't know if I should admit, but
that's fine. I've actually heard that before. Don't worry.
Yeah, it was so like trying to learn statistics and Excel at the same time was very stressful. But I think, Joyce, you mentioned the prep classes. They were really helpful. What else helped me? I felt like a total imposter for a long time, like at least for a year. But what I started to realize as I went through the program was that I may not have like finance and accounting aren't my strong set, but I can pick them up. And I think the ability to pick them up sort of built up my confidence and made me realize that I don't necessarily have what I believe is important to contribute, but I started to realize that as the program went on, that I had actually other things to contribute that I felt like were valid to other people, other experiences, and other skill sets that were a trade-off of like, okay, well, I can think this way in this scenario, and you think this way in this scenario, and your skill sets become more of a focus versus like your actual where you feel like your gaps are. So I don't know if that's advice or not, but advice to prep, like learn Excel. That would make your life a lot easier. Do the prep courses. And I think find some allies. Like they're just going to help your anxiety more than anything as you're going through and you're feeling all of those really haunting feelings like you're alone or you're the worst or you're not, you feel like you're lacking in certain areas. You're not. And everyone feels that way. First, well, maybe they don't, but a large percentage of people that were in my program shared the similar sentiments, which surprised me, but made us all really great allies for each other because everyone was experiencing a level of newness, whether it was in the skill sets that we felt we lacked or we learned in others. So
that's an important point to bring up, Jillian. And there's actually a question in the Q&A, like asking if any of you guys have ever felt imposter syndrome, because many of you guys have made some pretty dramatic changes. So maybe let's put that out as a topic to the panel. Like, has anyone ever felt imposter syndrome? And like, did it relate to when you were in the program or how did you get over it?
This reminded me of my first experience. So the first weekend in the program, or maybe it's the second weekend, I can't remember. You do the case study and we have to present it to small groups and you're discussing it in small groups. And I remember just talking with the others. I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, I totally missed the ball on this case study. What I proposed is like, it's almost comical. And I'm like thinking, I've got the business background, it'll be fine. And so I had that total imposter syndrome feeling in that setting, which was kind of new to me because at work I was like the golden boy. So it was, I had lots of confidence at work, but this was kind of new to me. Anyways, that evening, they post the exemplary case study. And I was shocked to see that it was mine that was selected. I was like, oh, okay. So everyone from time to time has, these feelings of maybe I'm not good enough, or what am I doing here? Everyone else is so much better. But as Jillian was saying, different perspectives are critical, especially in business. Just different perspectives are critical, period, but especially in business. So having that different perspective might make you feel uncomfortable while you're in the program or you're at work, but it is in the end, it can be a very good, positive thing.
Mm-hmm. Great.
I would also, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
To Vivian. I would also say that I think the program does a really good job of allowing everyone the ability to shine at some point in time. Like your experiences are all valid in certain different areas of the course, like maybe finance or accounting isn't your strength, but change management, organizational behavior, entrepreneurship, or marketing and branding, like there's so many different aspects of your personality that are drawn into certain things that allow you to shine in different ways. And the program does a really good job of bringing out a very well-rounded perspective.
Agreed.
Yes, Armando.
No, I'll say sorry.
Oh, you're disagreeing.
Okay. I was just like, yep, no, I agree.
That's awesome. So thanks for sharing a little bit about that feeling of like the imposter syndrome, because like it's good to hear that people like yourselves have gone through it, because I think sometimes people are, like feel this syndrome like, is an MBA for me? And it's also kind of like on that line of like imposter syndrome, do I belong here? So it's really good that you were able to share some of these insecurities that you were feeling both before going into the program and during the program as well. So thank you for that. So we have a question here. How does Sauder help candidates network, get guidance, or get products in front of potential investors? And maybe for those of you that have founded your own companies, it would be helpful to know if alumni can share some anecdotal experience on this point. So I know a few of you, obviously run some businesses. So like, were you able to use the Sauder network and guidance to get your business ahead of investors or collaborators?
I can jump in here, Vivian. I think it's as simple as just asking. So an example I'll give is actually right after this call, I'll be chatting with somebody on their startup just to bounce ideas off of it. It's nothing formal, but it's exactly that, right? Reach out to the alumni network, be very clear on what it is that you think they can help with. And I don't think I've ever had anybody say no. And like, vice versa too, if anybody's reaching out, especially with bouncing your pitch deck ideas, really getting a friendly face to kind of grill you with the tough questions, and make sure they do grill you with the tough questions before you actually put your kind of ideas in front of investor or potential business development partners. It's because I think we all went through the struggles that we just talked about of going through the very tough program, having imposter syndrome, and we understand that feeling and how difficult it could be. And so it's just a matter of reaching out. And I think Marja is always a nice connector to reach out to if you're not sure and need an expert in the specific space like healthcare or insurance or anything else. But yeah, I think it's simply just asking.
That's awesome.
If I can add something,
Yeah,
I think I've leveraged the network three ways, right? In a way that when, as part of being in sales for the last many years, sometimes I need to build an account plan or really get a sense of account. I didn't really know many people in the business. We sell software, so we're mostly stuck in IT. So I would just go to LinkedIn and find like fellow Sauder MBAs and just reach out and extend a hand. And not necessarily trying to abuse, but like just, hey, I'm collecting information. This is who I am. And most of them will reach out, extend a hand, and they'll give you that extra help, right? It will make me better and it will improve themselves as well. And in the other way, I've also been now, like an SAP, been reached out many, many times, but people that are interested in doing a transition to the technology, especially selling in technology, which is a very unique thing. And I've always met with people, and a lot of them I've actually made connections, introductions. I can't really help them directly, but because of the network, I introduce them to my network. that maybe are hiring or they were more junior people, and a good number of them, you know, Marja has sent me a few as well. You know, they ended up getting a job at SAP, and some of them are like, you know, fly off and they're VPs and whatnot, right? So I think it's something that can be leveraged both ways, like when you need them, but also we're there, right, as part of the network, and all of us will always have time for a coffee. Like I always say, like, we all need to have a few coffees a day, and we'll need to eat lunch, right? So
Yeah.
that's the one to live ourselves, so we can just share one or two here and then with the extended network, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's the idea of kind of giving and receiving in a network is important. It's something that Marja actually showed in her presentation. So, so that's a really good point to bring up, is that it's not just taking in a network, it's also being part of someone's network. And then there are always rebound effects from that.
Yep.
Great.
I would think that too. I think everyone remembers a pivotal conversation or a person that helped them introduce them to somebody significant, and you remember those conversations and what it meant for you. And I think it's important to give that back when people are asking for your time or you have it to offer. It's a give and take. And I think any person in any high level position probably didn't get there without a few of those. So it's just a matter of reaching out and asking and being, like Joyce said, specific with your ask and respectful of their time. And most people are pretty happy to help other people.
Yeah, great. And then another question, is quite a few questions actually came up along the lines of how were you able to kind of manage your full-time work alongside of the part-time MBA program? And then for those of you that have like experienced like promotions during the program, I think a lot of people often forget that getting promoted can be in itself kind of stressful because you get like new responsibilities. So speaking a little bit about like how it was managing a full-time work schedule, for those of you that got promotions during the program, how were you able to actually like manage the new responsibilities while still managing the challenging program? So anyone can start.
Sure, I'll jump in. It was a lot of work. Maybe I'll say I was fortunate not to have a partner and children. So it was me and, you know, I just have to worry about myself. Still a lot of work. Like I would say be prepared for working long hours, 6-7 days a week. If you have a demanding job, to do the program on top of it is very demanding. So I regularly would work 12 to 14-hour days, 6-7 days a week, and squeeze in seeing friends and family here and there while I could. But that was my choice because I wanted to keep my career advancing while I was doing the program. And I wanted to take what I was learning in the program and apply it as quickly as I could, because I knew that's how I learn best, is by applying what I'm learning. And so again, it was my choice to do that. But again, my experience.
If I can add something.
Oh, sorry, Armando.
No, go for it.
I was told pick 3 things. So pick 3 things at any given time to focus on, and there may be 5, but they'll rotate. And I think it is really hard. But when you're there, you're really committed to getting it done, and you'll get through it.
Yeah. I always say that to me, I mean, and it's not, you don't have to do an MBA to get this, but one of the best, most important skills in the MBA is time management, right? Like, I think to answer question number 1, you need buy-in from your employer. I mean, in my case, they didn't pay for school, but at least they understood that, you know, there was going to be an upside for them, right? So while I still had to do my full-time job, they were understanding most times. And in addition, my job required me to travel a lot. So I was doing like 50 to 70 flights a year during those 2 years. So one thing you learn very quickly is like Jillian said, you got to choose your 2 or 3 things, and time matters. Just a quick example is when I got my first case, which is like what Daniel mentioned, I think it took me a full weekend and I did not get selected as the best case. It was probably one of the worst ones, right? Full weekend. I think I put easily 15 hours to the whole thing, right? On the very last case, I had a flight to Calgary that week, and I said, I'm going to read the case on my flight there. I'm going to write it on the way back, 50 minutes each way, right? and I probably got one of my best grades in that one, right? So over the program, you learn to manage your time a lot more efficiently, really focus on the things that matter. And yeah, I did not watch Breaking Bad until I was done the MBA, because that's what I was famous at the time, but you know, or a lot of other shows, but you got to sacrifice a little bit, but getting the buy-in from your loved ones, partner, and employers, and really time management, right?
Great. So I'm mindful of the time. We're already a little bit over time, so I just want to end with like one of the good questions that we have from the chat box Q&A, which is, what is like a tangible feedback or a takeaway from the program that you received either through a mentor or through learning in the PMBA program that made you stand out or heard at your workplace or in your career in general? So like the major takeaway question.
Gurinder, you want to talk?
Yeah, Gurinder hasn't quiet for a while.
I'm going to put you on the spot, my friend.
Yeah, sure. So my big takeaway, hey, the big takeaway from the program, like, you can't be a judge of yourself. Like, you actually, like, you have your own biases that you can't see, like your own, like, and until you like get into this program and you start, you know, crushing cases together and working in study groups, will your colleagues start calling you out on things like, I'm like a process junkie, I always look at the numbers, right? Like, I'm just like, and they would point that out. And so that allowed me to understand that, oh, there's areas for me to improve. So that's like on an abstract level, some feedback. And I think like probably the best piece of feedback I probably got from Joyce, which was at one point we were doing like behavioral interviews, preparing me for these interviews. And we sat there for like 2 hours having coffee. And at one point she just told me, she's like, you need to stop. You just need to believe in yourself. Like, you don't believe in yourself. Until you start believing in yourself, you're going to do fine. So at some point, like, work really hard in the program, enjoy the friends that you make and like the study groups. I found going to class to be like very energizing, or like work, you know, meeting up with people at Robson Square at like 7 p.m. at night, very energizing. And like, we'd all talk about our war stories at work and stuff. And then at some point, you know, you put in all that hard work and you get really good. And then just like, as Armando said, you do a case in 50 minutes, just believe in yourself. So that was the best piece of feedback I got in the program.
Awesome. Thank you, Gurinder.
I echo that. That's critical, right?
What's your biggest takeaway from the program, Armando?
I think it's just that, I mean, I don't want to repeat what Gurinder just said, but it's just like, honestly, like I said, right? Like, I was a bit insecure about myself, right? I mean, I progressed my career at a place where I was very comfortable, but then when I really wanted to really break into the big leagues of business, you know, like get into it was my dream, like the corporate kind of like bubble here in the region in Canada. I was like, can I get there, right? And I think everything that I experienced through the program, through the failures, the long nights, all those meetings at 7 p.m. in Robson Square, the successes, right? The trips together, the friends I made, like we did a trip to Vegas and it was amazing, right? And at the end of the day, you just start believing, like, you know, I can do this, right? I can, like, you start seeing the people that are in your program that are like they're just normal folks like you, like you are, and then allows you to really get the best out of you, and with, you know, everything that we experience and all the new skills you learn and the knowledge, and you just come out a much better version of yourself. It's not like you weren't that, it's just like it allows you to really get all those skills and all that character out and show it to the world. And then, I mean, like, you can see from this group of amazing people, right? You can take it anywhere you want, right? Like, I mean, I chose the corporate ladder, but you can go start your own business. Like, doesn't matter where you go, right? Like, it's really within you to go and get it, right? And that to me was the biggest takeaway. It wasn't the title, but it's just the combination of experiences and network that allowed me to get where I am today.
Yeah, it's always in you. I think the MBA is just that process of like chiseling it out from like the marble,
yeah,
like who you can be. So
exactly.
That's really cool.
You can learn how to read financial reports on the internet, right? But it's really what you do with that information, and that's really the skill that will allow you to take it to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Great. Anybody else in the panel, like last, like kind of big takeaway from the MBA or like piece of advice maybe?
I've got one that I think was very helpful for me anyways, is that the MBA gives you such a big basket of generalist skills that you can take risks. And I think especially in these times during COVID-19, there's a lot of uncertainty. But as Daniel mentioned sort of at the very beginning, you learn the entire 360 of a business. And that is sort of the crux of no matter what organization, for profit, not for profit, it's the bones of how every organization works. And so by having that knowledge and having gone through the difficulty of learning it, it gets you very well set up for no matter what job or what venture you want to take. And with that, it allows you to take risks, right? So I hope that's something that can be taken away, is that it equips you very well for uncertain times.
Awesome.
Maybe the biggest thing for me is, well, the technical skills are great, you know, being able to analyze financial statements, put together a marketing plan. The most underrated part of the program, and I think in my experience, the most powerful part of the program, are the organizational behavior, human resource courses. If you have great people skills, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room, because there's lots of smart people out there. And you're going to be able to motivate them, tap into them, and get the best out of them. And so, you know, it's often called the soft skills. I can tell you the hardest part of any leadership position is working with people. That should be called the hard skills. Everything else is soft skills. You can learn it online. You can, you know, tap into someone else who might be a superstar in that field. But if you don't have the right people skills to work with them, you're not going to be successful. There's so many brilliant people out there who are just horrible to deal with, and you know they wonder why they're not achieving their goals, and it's because they're not able to interact with others. And that's one thing you will get lots of opportunities to do in the MBA program. Work with a lot of different people, a lot of different personalities, and you have to come together to achieve an objective. And it definitely makes all the difference. It's made all the difference in my career, and was, you know, the friends and the colleagues that I have from the program.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Daniel. It really puts into light the importance of, you know, the BCC's investment of developing kind of this emotional capital development program, that big investment into developing these soft skills, which I think a lot of companies see, or like the traditional mind sees as like kind of fluffy stuff, but it's actually really, really important. And it's one of those intangible success factors that you will not get it without these soft skills. So that's a really important part to bring up. And Jillian, any final points about a like major takeaway or word of advice to people?
I think I agree with particularly what you just said, Daniel. The soft skills are where it's at. So if you feel like the hard skills are the ones that you're really going to struggle with, you'll get through them. But if it's those ones that are really going to help you with all of that. And I learned about myself, like the only limits on me are the ones that I placed on myself. So, you know, I learned very quickly starting out a group and saying what you're really bad at, so that everyone knows that you don't think that you're really good at finance when you're not, is probably not the best way to start out. So it's like, you know, you kind of limit yourself, and then you learn that you actually can pick it up and you'll be fine. And I think the only limits that I had were the ones that I did put on me. So
yeah, so don't self-impose limits on yourself, I guess sounds like your word advice. Yeah, so that's great. So I want to be mindful of all your time, and I want to thank you for volunteering your evening tonight to share your insights about the program and share like the positive experience, and also I think importantly share some of like the vulnerabilities that you felt like when you were going through this, and that it was a challenge for you too, but in the end was worthwhile, and it's helped you to get to where you are. So I guess wherever everyone else, please give a virtual round of applause to our amazing alumni panelists for coming out tonight. I'm going to stick around. So I'm going to stick around just to answer any last more like admissions and program related questions, but I'm going to let the alumni panelists get on to the rest of their evenings. So thank you again for joining us. And we hope to connect with you again soon, hopefully, you know, without a pandemic, which probably Joyce will help us navigate through like crisis management. So, so thank you again. And I hope to reconnect with all of you again soon. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So I'm just going to look through the Q&A now just to see if there's any other kind of more program related questions that I can help answer. And then I will let the rest of you off for your evenings.
Sure.
Bye, Armando. So let's see here. We have a question related to the interviews. This is a good question for those of you that are still here with us. What to expect, you know, when you're doing an interview for an MBA program. So there's no trick here for doing an MBA interview. We're essentially just trying to get to know you better. So, you know, when you submit an MBA application, we see your grades, we see your essays, we see, you know, your videos. So the interview is really a way for us to tie everything else together and to get to know you as a person. You know, all of this assessment that we do is part of our responsibility to make sure that, you know, this program is right for you and you stand to gain something from it. So helpful ways to prepare for an interview and actually just prepare for the MBA decision in general is to think a lot about your career goals. So what do you want to get out of an MBA? What are your objectives? You know, think about short term, like, you know, what are your learning objectives during the MBA, as well as, you know, what kind of potential career moves you might want to make during the MBA, because a lot of 90% of our students will get that career change during the program. So like some thinking around what your career goals are, some tangibles around that are very helpful in terms of, you know, preparing for the MBA interview, but also preparing for the application itself. These things and around your goals and your learning objectives, you should have some idea about before you choose to do the MBA. And if you're unsure, you want a discussion about it, like coming to an event like this is great, but also booking an appointment with me so I could, you know, kind of look at your profile, answer questions, and really just have a discussion about what your goals are around doing an MBA. So that was a good question. So preparing for an interview starts really with preparing for the decision to do an MBA itself. Some of those things, your learning objectives and your career goals, should be already somewhat developed, or you have some idea where you want to go with it. Okay, great. So the rest of the questions are not kind of like admissions related. Some of them were covered during the alumni panel. So I will let you off to the rest of your evening. There's still a little bit of sunshine out there. So thank you again to all the participants for coming out tonight to join us. Thank you to our BCC team, Marja and Ivan for being out here, and to the admissions and recruitment team as well. So keep in touch with us. We will be sending all of you an email afterwards with my link to self-book an appointment should you wish to chat with me about your specific kind of career goals. And we look forward to seeing you at a future event. So in the summertime, we will have one last lecture event, so keep an eye out on that. But in the meantime, please feel free to stay in touch. Know that this journey is unique for everybody, and don't hesitate to get in contact with us. Thank you.